Welcome to the channel, the tragic story of Alexandria Costiel, a case that ripped through the University of Mississippi, Ole Miss.
In February, 21-year-old Alexandria Costiel was a junior at the University of Mississippi, better known as Miss. She was smart, ambitious, and full of life, the kind of person who lit up every room she walked into. College had been everything she'd hoped for, exciting, fulfilling, and filled with possibilities. But beneath all those bright moments was a shadow, an on-and-off relationship with a fellow student named Brandon Thefeld. To most people, they seem like the perfect college couple, but Ollie's friends saw things differently. They worried about Brandon, the way he spoke to her, the way he made her feel small. They begged her to move on, to find someone who would treat her the way she deserved. Sadly, Ollie didn't take their advice, and that decision would lead to a tragedy no one saw coming. Ollie was born on September 11, 1997 in St. Louis, Missouri. From the start, she was lively, kind, and endlessly curious. She shared a close bond with her parents, Cindy and Keith, and her younger brother, Andrew. Her childhood was happy and peaceful, filled with laughter, adventures, and the kind of tight-knit family love that so many people dream of. By high school, Ollie was already a force of nature. At Lindbergh High School, she joined the cheerleading team, ran track, played golf, and still found time to serve in student government. She was also a member of the National Honor Society, and she didn't just talk about helping people, she lived it. She even spent time overseas, traveling to Africa and South America to teach English to children in small, underserved communities. It was the kind of experience that changed her, deepened her compassion, her sense of purpose, and through all of it, she had her best friend, Maddie Norris, by her side. The two were inseparable. From study sessions to school dances, even prom, they were the kind of friends who felt more like sisters. When graduation rolled around, many of Ollie's friends chose to stay close to home for college, but Ollie had her sights set on something bigger. She wanted to go to Miss, drawn by its Southern charm, rich history, and of course, its legendary football culture. She dreamed of studying business and marketing, hoping to one day build a career in the fashion industry. With her drive and academic record, getting accepted wasn't a question, it was a given. That fall, she packed her bags and headed for Oxford, Mississippi, ready to start a new chapter. And from the moment she arrived on campus, she fell in love with everything about Miss. She wasn't just there to study, she wanted to experience it all, to meet new people, chase new opportunities, and make the most of every single day. Ollie was the kind of person who didn't just live life, she embraced it wholeheartedly. But what she couldn't have known was that the same place she found her independence, her friends, and her dreams would also be where she faced her darkest moments. In February, Ollie met Brandon Thefeld, a fellow student from Fort Worth, Texas. At first, there was an instant spark between them, that magnetic pull people often mistake for fate.
Grounded and full of light, the kind of person everyone naturally gravitated toward. Brandon, on the other hand, had a reputation that wasn't nearly as flattering. Most people on campus described him as arrogant, spoiled, and often misogynistic. He bragged about his wealthy family, acted like rules didn't apply to him, and liked to remind people that his dad could fix any problem he got himself into. It's unclear whether he showed that side of himself around Allie, or if she was simply drawn to the thrill of dating someone with a rebellious edge. But either way, the two started seeing each other fast. They went to parties together, attended Greek events, and seems like a typical college couple from the outside. But according to Allie's friends, things were far from perfect. Brandon could be cold, distant, and cruel. He'd make rude or cutting remarks, disappear for days without explanation, and then reappear like nothing had happened. Each time, Allie's friends would console her, begging her to let him go, to stop giving him chances he didn't deserve. But Allie, she was loyal. Too loyal. Despite the emotional roller coaster, she kept balancing it all. Her studies, her social life, her clubs, and somehow managed to keep smiling through it. By early 2019, she seemed to be finding her rhythm again. Graduation was just a year away, and life felt full of possibility. When her parents visited that spring, they spent time laughing, reminiscing, and soaking up every minute together. Allie even asked them to stay longer, a sign that she was truly happy, or at least trying to be. But just beneath the surface, something dark was brewing. On April 12, 2019, Allie texted Brandon to tell him she might be pregnant. She wanted to tell him in person, but they hadn't been seeing much of each other lately. When she hit send, silence. No response. 2 days later, she sent him a photo of an inconclusive home pregnancy test, hoping he'd finally respond. And he did, but not in the way she hoped. His reply was cold, almost emotionless. He told her to get rid of it, said having a baby would ruin his life. He made it clear he wanted nothing to do with it or with her. For Allie, who was kind-hearted and deeply emotional, that message must have cut deep. This wasn't just rejection, it was cruelty. And while she was left heartbroken, Brandon was busy searching online for morning-after pills and local abortion clinics, as if the entire situation was nothing more than an inconvenience. As summer approached, most of Allie's friends packed up and left Oxford for break, but she stayed behind. No one sure exactly why. Maybe to work things out with Brandon, or maybe to get some space and clarity. Whatever her reason, it would be one of the last decisions she ever made. By mid-July, things were spiraling fast. Brandon had gone back home to Fort Worth, and while there, he posted a photo on social media. A Glock 40 caliber pistol, a gift from his father. The caption read, "Finally taking my baby back to Oxford." It sounded harmless enough until you look closer at what came next. After returning to Oxford on July 16th, Brandon's search history took a chilling turn. He looked up gun silencers, tactical masks,
Hollow point bullets, and even information about serial killer Ted Bundy. Then came Friday, July 19th, the night everything changed. That evening, Allie's mom, Cindy, called to check in. Allie had just woken up from a nap. She sounded normal, cheerful, said she planned to go out with some friends later that night. She met up with them at a bar in Oxford Square, laughing, talking, probably trying to forget all the chaos with Brandon for a while. But around 9 p.m., her phone buzzed. It was him. Brandon asked if he could come over. Allie agreed, maybe hoping this time things would be different, maybe hoping they could finally talk things through. She left the bar around 11:30 p.m., called an Uber, and headed home. At 12:46 a.m., surveillance footage caught Brandon's Chevy pickup near Allie's apartment complex, The Retreat. By 1:14 a.m., the same truck was seen leaving, heading in the opposite direction. Phone data later showed something even more chilling. Between 1:14 and 1:55 a.m., both their phones traveled together, heading towards Sardis Lake, about 30 miles away. And then, around 2 a.m., residents near the lake reported hearing multiple gunshots echoing through the night. The next morning, Brandon called a friend. He claimed his apartment was being fumigated and asked if he could crash at their place for a while. He showed up around 10 a.m., stayed for a few hours, and left around 1:30 p.m. after searching online for one thing in particular: news about Sardis, Mississippi. Before dawn on Saturday, July 20th, 2019, a Lafayette County deputy was patrolling near Sardis Lake when his headlights caught something on the side of the road. As he drove closer, he froze. Lying face down near the edge of the dirt road was the body of a young woman. She had been shot multiple times in the back. Spent shell casings were scattered across the ground. The deputy immediately called for backup. When investigators and paramedics arrived, they found a purse nearby. Inside were a driver's license and a University of Mississippi student ID. The name read Alexandria Costiel. The lead investigator, Ted Bundy, later said it was one of the most disturbing crime scenes he had ever witnessed. The brutality, the sheer number of gunshots. Allie's phone was missing, but there was no doubt about who she was. And back in St. Louis, as dawn broke, Cindy and Keith Costiel got the call no parent should ever have to receive. Their daughter was gone. Word of Allie's death spread quickly through the Ole Miss community. Friends, classmates, and sorority sisters were devastated. None more so than Maddie Norris, her lifelong best friend. Investigators wasted no time. They began questioning everyone who knew Allie, and one name came up again and again: Brandon Thefeld. Allie's phone was never recovered, but thanks to her iCloud backup, detectives were able to access her text history. And those messages would soon expose everything that happened in her final hours. By Sunday morning, July 21st, investigators reached out to Brandon Thefeld, asking him to come in for questioning. He didn't seem surprised, but said he was busy, promising to show up the next morning at 8:30 a.m. He never did. At that point, Brandon was already considered a person of interest, and his no-show raised immediate red flags. Fearing he might flee, police obtained an arrest warrant under exigent circumstances. When they tracked his phone, it showed he was driving north on Interstate 55 toward Memphis, Tennessee. Law enforcement agencies were quickly alerted to be on the lookout for a black Chevy pickup with the license plate T3I. It didn't take long for the Memphis Police Department's fugitive task force to spot Brandon at a gas station near the interstate. He didn't resist when they arrested him. Inside his truck, officers found a .40 caliber Glock pistol. Brandon was extradited back to Lafayette County, Mississippi just days after Allie's murder, but investigators still needed solid evidence to tie him directly to the crime. That evidence came when they searched his apartment. There, they found an unsent letter addressed to his parents. In it, Brandon admitted to battling dark thoughts made worse by his cocaine and alcohol use. He wrote that he felt his end was near, hinting that he might soon face prison or death. Whether that meant suicide or something violent wasn't clear, but it showed a man on the edge. Investigators then dug deeper into his devices and social media accounts. GPS data revealed that both Brandon's and Allie's phones had been in nearly identical locations before and after her death, suggesting he took her phone from the scene and got rid of it later. They also found a disturbing post on his Twitter account. On the very day Allie's body was discovered, Brandon had tweeted lyrics from the 1982 hit song, "You Dropped a Bomb on Me." Investigators believed it was a cruel reference to Allie's message about possibly being pregnant. But when the medical examiner's report came back, it revealed that Allie had never been pregnant. Finally, ballistics testing confirmed that the bullets used in Allie's murder matched Brandon's Glock pistol, leaving no doubt who pulled the trigger. On August 20th, 2019, a Mississippi grand jury indicted Brandon Thefeld on a charge of capital murder. The indictment against Brandon accused him of kidnapping Allie before killing her, an accusation that raised his charge from first degree to capital murder. Despite the mounting evidence, Brandon's father publicly defended him during a controversial TV interview in Mississippi. He insisted that his son was innocent and urged people not to rush to judgment before the trial. Meanwhile, Allie's friends and family gathered for a memorial to honor her life, a celebration of the bright, kind spirit that had touched so many people. Social media was flooded with messages of heartbreak and anger. Many expressed disbelief that someone could commit such a brutal, senseless act against a young woman with such a promising future. Brandon's trial was pushed back nearly 2 years because of the COVID-19 pandemic. At first, he pleaded not guilty to the capital murder charge. His defense attorney then filed for him to be released on bond. But before a judge could decide, the attorney changed course, asking instead for Brandon to remain in custody for a psychiatric evaluation. It seemed like a strategic move, possibly to set up an insanity defense. But when the results came back, they showed that Brandon was mentally competent and fully responsible for his actions. By late 2020, after months of legal back and forth between the prosecution and defense, Brandon's charge was reduced from capital murder to first-degree murder. Then, in the summer of 2021, he finally changed his plea. He stood up in court and admitted to killing Allie. As part of the plea deal, Brandon described what happened that night in painful detail. The courtroom was filled with emotion as both the Costiel and Thefeld families sat just a few feet apart. Around a dozen of Allie's close friends and sorority sisters were also there, listening in silence, some in tears, others too stunned to react. Neither Brandon nor his attorney offered a clear motive.
But Lafayette County District Attorney Ben Creekmore told the court that Brandon killed Allie because he didn't want to have a child. That revelation was especially devastating for everyone there, because the autopsy had already confirmed that Allie had never been pregnant at all. The trial itself was brief and quiet. There were no shocking twists or dramatic moments, just the grim reality of a young woman's life cut short and a confession that came far too late. Brandon was ultimately convicted and sentenced to life in prison at the Mississippi State Penitentiary, better known as Parchman Farm. Under Mississippi law, anyone convicted of first-degree murder can technically become eligible for release after serving 15 years or reaching the age of 65. But there's no guarantee Brandon will ever walk free again. For all anyone knows, he could spend the rest of his life behind bars. After the verdict was read, Brandon stood in court and addressed Cindy and Keith Costiel, Allie's parents. He apologized for taking their daughter's life, for the pain he caused, and said he wished he could undo what he had done. He asked for God's forgiveness and said he hoped that someday the Costiel family might find it in their hearts to forgive him, too. When Allie's parents' statements were read aloud by Assistant District Attorney Mickey Millette, the entire courtroom fell silent. Cindy's words painted a heartbreaking picture of the bond she shared with her daughter, a connection that could never be replaced. She called Brandon a cruel and evil monster, and said she hoped that every time his cell door slammed shut, it would remind him of the life he took and the suffering he caused. Both Cindy and Keith spoke about their struggle to accept the reality of what had happened. Keith admitted that even now, there are days when he catches himself thinking Allie is still away at Ole Miss, that she'll walk through the door any day now, smiling like she always did. After the sentencing, Brendan's parents released a statement of their own. His mother, Carrie, said she was completely shocked when she learned her son was under investigation for murder. She and her husband had no idea he had been battling such deep emotional issues. While they didn't deny his guilt, Carrie urged other parents to stay close to their children, to talk to them, really talk to them, because no problem should ever be too big or too uncomfortable to share. If you found this case compelling, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We post true crime stories every night. Until next time, stay sharp and stay vigilant.